Welcome, everyone, to the MLB Network Podcast from Studio K. It's all presented by New Balance. We got now. It's Greg Amsinger with 15-year big league veteran Adam Ottavino. Adam, good to see you. How have things been?
Everything's great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so biggest question to start things off. Are you retired yet? Have you officially hung up the cleats?
No, I'm not pursuing it right now, but the arm still works. All systems are capable of being turned on. But yeah, I'm not pursuing it right now. Just going to do some other things, and we'll see if something pops up, and I'll stay ready. But I don't really want to cross the retirement threshold. I might play in the WBC. I mean, things could happen.
Pursue it. Define that, so you're not on the phone with your agent talking all the time, is that, or you're not training like you're preparing to go back?
I mean, I'm staying in shape. I'm throwing somewhat, but I'm not, on the day-to-day, I'm not doing what I had been doing. Like, I'm not in Florida right now, at a field, working on my own and just hoping the phone to ring every day. I've kind of gotten my head wrapped around the fact that it might not happen, probably won't happen. But like I said, open to things changing. I certainly reserve the right to change my mind. So there's no point in making anything official.
Can I give you my 2 cents?
Yeah, sure.
I have a feeling it's going to happen. Can I tell you why?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I scoured all of the standings, and I was looking at the current state of bullpens right now.
Yeah.
And there are too many teams with postseason aspirations, good enough to go to play in October, that need bullpen help right now. And I want to give you the 6. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they've had so many injuries to guys like Putz and Martinez and guys with serious velo and spin. The Chicago Cubs, last 18 save opportunities, they have 10 saves. Okay. Philadelphia Phillies, Jose Alvarado, we know a lot about that. The 80-game suspension. The Texas Rangers, Luke Jackson's our closer, ERA over 5. Chris Martin, 39 years old, just dealt with an injury the other day. The Detroit Tigers have unproven guys who they're relying on to get big outs, right? I love Tommy Kahnle, but can someone that just throws a changeup over and over and over again be a closer for a world championship team? Maybe, maybe not. And I still think the New York Yankees are going to add depth to their bullpen. So those are 6 teams, and you have history with some of those teams, 6 teams that I believe would look for someone who still has your velo, your spin, and your history. You've got experience in big moments. Are you buying what I'm selling, Adam?
Well, I mean, listen, I didn't plan on not playing this year. I fully planned on playing. It's just sort of the way things went that my options kind of dwindled down to minor league deals and claw your way back up there. And that's just something I'm not willing to do. Like, if a team comes to me and says, we'd love for you to join our team, here's a guarantee that will happen, go get yourself ready, we could talk about it. But that hasn't been the case. And, so it is what it is. Like I said, just not going to chase it. I've been part of 15 seasons in the big leagues, more than I ever dreamed of. Grateful for it all. And, I'm just trying to keep a level head on my shoulders about the whole thing.
Do the numbers back up that you go back onto a big league mound right now in terms of velo, spin, all the stuff, the vertical break on your stuff? Do you have the data right now that you could show a GM and say, I'm ready to go?
Well, the way I evaluate it, yeah. But, I mean, the way they evaluate it, who knows? The way I look at it, I've been effective my whole career. I was effective last year. I was effective at the beginning of this season. Stuff still plays. I've been healthy for 8 straight seasons. I mean, I've done a lot of things well. But again, it's not up to me. It's going to take 2 sides for me to continue to play. And like I said, I'm just not expecting it, and we'll see what happens.
I'm fascinated by what they look at. And you have more insight to that than we know. What are front offices looking at? Are they looking at drop in velocity? Are they looking at any sort of like slug on certain off-speed pitches that guys weren't barreling up before? What is the criteria that these front offices are all collectively going, nah, we're staying away?
Well, certainly there's a lot of measurables these days, and teams build their own stuff models now. And I think the reality is, as a right-handed reliever, there's a lot of supply. I think before, the demand might have exceeded the supply, but I think now, like, just when you're just talking about stuff alone, the minor leagues are filled with guys that can light up a stuff model. 100 miles an hour, all sorts of break on their sweepers and their sinkers and their kick changes, and you name it. The pitches exist out there, so there's a lot of thought to giving those guys some chances, and I totally understand that. I think, when I evaluate a pitcher, I look at a lot of different things. Certainly, stuff plays into it. But it does seem like the stuff models are king at the moment.
Should the front offices sort of value the experience more than they currently are valuing it? Because I see Kirby Yates a couple of years ago didn't look like he was going to have a lot of time left in the big leagues, but they stuck with him, and then he had a monster year last year, landed a contract. We're seeing Rich Hill still get flyers. Like, do we need to fight that fight as a sport that guys on the mound need to have been there many times before, and that should be valued over just the radar gun?
Well, I mean, to be fair, it was valued in my career for a long time. I mean, I was able to pitch into my age 39 season. Most guys are not afforded that leeway. You know, I think I was trusted for a long time. My experience was valued. You know, I look at it in a way through the lens of some other players, like David Robertson, for example. Why is he not playing right now? I mean, he struck out 99 guys last year. For me, outside of the Chapman, Kimbrel, Jansen group, he's probably the best reliever of this generation. So for him not to get a job at age 40, granted he probably has a higher price tag than me, but for him not to get a job shows a little bit that the models really do fall off a cliff after a certain age. It seems like I've gotten to that point, 38, 39, 40. It seems like that's kind of where the rubber hits the road.
And what emotion comes with the word retirement for a guy that was in the big leagues as long as you?
I kind of digested it a little bit last year. You know, I struggled a little bit at times last year, fell out of the trust circle, if you will. And, you know, I kind of knew that, you know, you can't do this forever. But it's the only thing I ever wanted to do, right? So it's sad, it's tough. It's tough to give up on something that you love to do day to day. It's not just the games, it's everything. It's just being the pitcher all the time never really stops. You know, how you take care of yourself, how you're always planning for your next outing, how you're trying to, you know, make it through the whole season. All those things are just familiar to me. It's something I've done my whole career. But yeah, there's emotions there. I definitely dealt with them last year. I just think, you know, there comes a point where you have to kind of look to the future and kind of plan for that, and that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, well, if it is a career, which we don't want to formally say it is a career yet, let's talk about some of the moments you had in your career. We're going to step aside and do that. Much more with Adam Ottavino on the MLB Network Podcast right after this. They're worn by players like Michael Harris to meet the demand of elite ball players. The New Balance Fuel Cell 4040 V7 is a versatile cleat. The 4040 V7 is built for the athlete who needs responsiveness and ability to cut and run at their full speed. The model features a fuel cell foam underfoot and a synthetic and mesh upper to provide breathability, comfort, and snug fittage around the bases. The fuel cell midsole features nitrogen-infused foam specifically designed to propel athletes forward. Learn more and purchase the 4040s right here at newbalance.com. Back in Studio K on the MLB Network Podcast with Adam Ottavino. You spent, 7 seasons with the Colorado Rockies?
Yep.
Now, do you define yourself as a Rocky? Like, that is your franchise?
Probably. I don't know. That's a tough one, right? I grew up a Yankee fan, played parts of 3 years now with the Yankees, so that tugs at me a little bit, and then I played 3 full years with the Mets, so like being a New Yorker, those two are super special. But yeah, I mean, got the most games with the Rockies in my career in 7 years, and we worked to build something. We did make it to the playoffs my last 2 years. That feels significant in a different kind of way, so I'd say yeah.
Do we, when I say we, the media, make too much of a big deal out of pitching at Coors Field?
Well, I mean, the results have kind of borne out that no, I don't think we do make too big of a deal of it. It's been a nightmare for all pitchers for, I guess, going on 30 years now over there. Reality is it's a different game. It's harder. It's a lot of challenges involved. Doesn't mean you can't get the job done there. But yeah, it's without a doubt the hardest place to pitch in the history of baseball.
Now, why is it the hardest place to pitch in the history of baseball? For you personally, because there aren't many guys that survive that long wearing that uniform.
There's a couple factors. Number one, the altitude, and that affects things in a number of ways. The first way is your pitches just move about 80% of your normal amount. So if you have, 20 inches of movement on a pitch, it's going to have only 80% of that. So 16 or so. Right?
Which is jarring to you, but the casual fans sitting at home really don't notice it as much.
I mean, they say it's a game of inches, and it really is. Like, if you're getting 20 inches on your fastball and now it's 16, that pitch is just much more hittable for a hitter. It just is. That's reality. And obviously, I was a guy who had a lot of movement on my pitches, so it muted my pitches to some extent, which is frustrating. And the tricky part of it is, you go from sea level back to altitude every other week. So on sea level, your pitches feel like they're moving out of control crazy, and then you go home and they feel like they're not moving at all. So it's a constant adjustment and recalibration you have to do home and road throughout the whole season. It's tricky. And I think the second thing is just the size of the field. And they made the fences a little bigger because the ball flies further, but because the field's so large, especially the outfield, more hits fall in.
Yeah.
So you got more hits falling in, and contact just becomes your enemies. So now you don't have the pitches to strike guys out and miss the bats. And on top of it, when they do hit, it's got a greater likelihood of falling in. So those are two huge challenges right there. And then the third one is you don't recover the same at altitude. Less oxygen, so you don't sleep as well. You don't get the same recovery. So you're up against it on the field. You're also up against it a little bit in your quest to stay on the field. So all of those three things combined, pretty tricky. And let's throw in the fact that they're in a super duper division
right.
with absolute monsters everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's challenging. But like I said, it's a great challenge to take on. And when they do win, it's going to be really magical.
All right, let's play. Can we play a game?
Yeah.
A game of pretend. Adam Ottavino gets hired to oversee the pitching dilemma of Coors Field. Mm-hmm. How would Adam Ottavino attack this colossal issue?
All right, so we talked a little bit off air about, maybe player acquisition strategies for the Rockies. I'm more in the camp of draft as many pitchers as you can, because I just don't see how else you're getting the elite talent. Like, you're not getting it through signings. No, a lot of pitchers aren't going to sign there, especially
you won't get any A-listers.
Right, you're not going to get any A-listers.
No.
Trades, it's kind of tough to trade with the Rockies because they know how desperate you are for the pitching, so you end up getting screwed on the deal, and you're never going to win those
really
deals.
Good point. That's really, yeah.
So you're looking at developing your own guys, claiming guys off the scrap heap, which is certainly how I got to Colorado, so that's a good method. But yeah, I think you got to attack it with a quantity, in a quantity type of way with the draft and with your international signs. Just get as many upside pitchers as you can. And then the way I've developed them is I would focus mostly actually not on stuff, because again, since your stuff is so muted, I'd be teaching more of the other layers of pitching, sequencing, reading swings, all sorts of pitching fundamentals that we don't talk about a lot now because guys are so nasty that they don't even need to have a lot of fundamentals. But for the Rockies, those things are huge. And it's just training that mentality too, especially the starters. Like, as a starter, the reality is your ERA is going to be higher than you want it to be being a Rocky. But if you just keep your head down and realize that your job isn't to have a great ERA, but it's to beat that other starter that came in, you can have a lot of success there. And there's been some success stories that have come out of Colorado over the years. I mean, Jorge De La Rosa is a guy I played with. He won like 80 games for the Rockies at Coors Field.
Yeah.
And that was the mentality. Like, I don't have to be perfect, but I got to be better than my opponent, and we can win a lot of games here.
Ubaldo Jimenez had the greatest first half ever in Coors Field history.
Yep.
And he was the best pitcher in baseball that year. He had sink and ride to all of his pitches. I don't think he could throw a baseball straight. Right? Is sink the number one most valued commodity to come out of your hand if you're pitching at Coors Field?
It's tough because your sinker gets muted, so you're used to seeing a lot of drop and you're not getting the same action. And a lot of guys get spooked off their sinker in Colorado because, you throw a seam-shifted sinker, you're relying on the air to grip those seams and kind of pull the ball in the direction that you want. But since there's less air, it's not pulling it at the same rate, so you'll feel like your sinker's almost cutting a little bit, so it loses a lot of faith. Now, perfect world, you want to get strikeouts and ground balls in Colorado. Strikeouts, nothing bad can happen when no ball's being put in play. And ground balls, there's no extra base hits on ground balls unless they're right down the line. So perfect world, yes, you'd like to have a combination of sink, but also missing the bats. The tricky part is finding a way to get the ball to sink and get those ground balls, because the action on your pitch just isn't what you're used to. So that's the trick. Ubaldo did it because he threw 100 miles an hour back when it wasn't cool yet. And he was able to locate down in the zone, and they packed the infield with unbelievable defense.
That's right.
This is a way to do it. But yeah, it's tricky to find those guys.
Will we see the Colorado Rockies win the World Series in our lifetime?
Definitely yes.
Yes, definitely yes.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten close. They've gotten to the World Series. And I think they have a big advantage at home. Like, once they get to the playoffs, no team wants to play games in Coors. Like, the Rockies could be 8-40 right now. And trust me, like, teams still don't want to go and play there because it's a little bit different.
Well, it's fun hanging out with Adam Ottavino. I want to talk about your New York experience with both teams, the Mets and the Yankees, when we come back. And also this pitching lab in Brooklyn. What's that all about? Adam Ottavino on the MLB Network Podcast. Back after this. We're continuing our fascinating conversation with Adam Ottavino, 15-year big league veteran, has not retired yet. It's the MLB Network Podcast in Studio K. Adam, would you say, after you left Colorado, I don't understand why they let you walk. After 2018, sub-3 ERA, you were incredible. You go to the Yankees. You grew up in this area. You put on the pinstripes. You have a monster 2019 season. was that your career year in your eyes?
I think 2018, the year before with the Rockies. I pitched more. I was better that year. 19, I was good, but I got a little lucky. I got bailed out by our friend Tommy Canley. Every time I would leave a guy on base, but lefty coming up, he would come in and kind of
You guys never forget that stuff, by the way.
No, and also that year, just a little bit of sour taste in my mouth. Gave up some big runs in the ALCS that year, so can't really pat myself on the back too hard. I would say 2018 was the best year.
Is the ninth inning the same as every other inning? That's a debate we have in this building constantly.
So it's harder. It's harder in the sense that if you blow it, it hurts more. Like you're closer to the edge, and I think it affects the team more. So the failures are larger and more painful. But hey, I've been saying this for a while. I think the mechanics of pitching the ninth inning are actually easier than any other inning that you might pitch in the bullpen.
Why is that?
Simply because in the ninth inning, you know what your job is. You know exactly what is required of you on that given night. If you have a 2-run lead, 1 run, you still did your job. Guys tend to be more passive in the ninth, trying to create, base runners, trying to let you, kill yourself out there. So if you just attack the zone in the ninth inning, oftentimes it can go pretty easily. And, just as a routine thing too, like you're not pitching down any runs. You're only pitching the tie game at home.
Yeah.
You kind of know what to expect. And I just feel like also you get a little swagger boost being the closer, like that. You come in there and you're like, yeah, I am the man a little bit. And I feel like that can take you up a level. So to me, ninth inning, more painful when you suck, but kind of easier overall. And I know that's a little controversial, but that's kind of how I feel.
Would you prefer ninth inning or be the high leverage weapon?
So I always chose the high leverage weapon in my career, and I think that's the right move for the team and the right move to win. I think individually I kind of regret it a little bit because there's just no doubt that it's cooler to be a closer and more financially.
And you get paid.
You get paid a little better, and there's certain things with that role that just give you a little more credit around the league.
All right, so you're kind of an analytic guy. You like numbers. But from an emotional standpoint, as you look back at your career and how you were treated and what it felt like to play for each respective team, was there anything close to playing for the New York Yankees?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's pretty similar playing for the Red Sox and the Mets under Steve Cohen. Yankees are the king of the sport for as long as I've been alive, but I think that's an evolving situation. You got the Dodgers and, the Mets. Really, the Mets are not going to stop. They're going to keep coming. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with from here on out, as long as Steve and Alex are running the team. That's the way the Yankees felt when I was there, but the Mets certainly are at that level now. So I think it's similar.
And you enjoyed it the same, playing for both organizations, because right now everyone's talking about the Mets and the Yankees because of Juan Soto, but you equally enjoyed your time playing for both.
I did. I mean, there's some nuance there that's different, but I have a lot of love for both organizations. They both treated me incredibly well. It was a dream to play for both. They bring a couple different things to the table. For the most part, you're playing in New York on the big stage, both places, and you're going to have a chance to win every year.
All right, so everyone has these moments in their career, like the low point in their career, the high point in their career. Looking back at yours, was there a moment that if you could have a little touchscreen for your kids to look back and watch Daddy at his best, was there a game that you were at your best that you would want in that iPad for your kids?
At my best, I had a couple moments in my career where I had a couple bursts where I felt like I was legitimately in the conversation for best in my position. And the first one was probably the beginning of the 2015 season, right before I got Tommy John. Didn't give up a run in 10 innings.
I remember that.
My velo jumped out of nowhere. I was throwing 96, 98. I felt invincible at that time. That was probably the most dominant I ever was, and it was a shame that I couldn't keep that going because I got hurt. But that stretch, the beginning of 2018 was part of that stretch. Beginning of 2019, similar. It's hard to put my finger on it because there was a couple bursts where I got to that level. I just couldn't sustain it as long as I would have liked to.
Yeah, the impact of managers on relievers.
It's a big deal, and I think that it's a skill set that's tough to acquire because, let's be honest, most managers aren't pitchers. They never did the job, so it's a little bit of a blind spot when they first take the job. And I think the guys that were the best at it were the ones that had been in the job a long time. The Buck Showalters, Alex Cora had a certain amount of experience. I thought, it's really seeing the season as a living, breathing thing, 162 games, and understanding how to get the most out of each of your guys. And not necessarily being desperate all the time, not chasing every game, understanding kind of how to keep your unit in tip-top shape. So come the end of the year, when you're in the mix, you have the full, selection of those guys to push you across the finish line.
Win the war, not every single battle along the way. That kind of mentality.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, what about this pitching lab? Because clearly you're obsessed with your craft, and you have perfected it in many ways throughout your career. It's in Brooklyn. Give me the origins of this pitching lab.
So it's actually in Harlem.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, so 2017, my worst season in the big leagues, that offseason, had my child was about 1, my oldest. She was about 1. I was commuting back and forth from my apartment to Long Island to train. I was stressed out. Felt like my training kind of suffered a little bit. I had been on a pretty good run of pitching leading up to that year, so I kind of thought my ability would just be there. This is the mistake I made. So show up that year in spring training, had kind of a rocky spring, went into the season and realized I was pretty out of whack. Before you know it, I was out of the trust circle, and around August that year, I said, man, I really need to make some changes. I need a place to actually practice baseball. I can't just expect my skills to just show up every year. And I realized that I was doing a lot of work on my physical side of things, in the weight room and staying healthy and stuff like that. But I really wasn't working on my skills as much as I could. And in the modern game, it's tough to show up to spring training and work on skills. Like, they're ready to evaluate you right there. You got to show up ready to go. So I never really had an opportunity to take a step forward. And that's what the lab was about. I was lucky to get a space in Manhattan and Harlem that my father-in-law kind of worked. His company developed that entire building, and there were in between renters in this one spot. I jumped at the opportunity, outfitted it with all the toys and all the weight stuff, and just lived in there. And that whole year, that led into 2018, which was my best year. I was able to finally, fix some of my problems, create some good habits, and go from there.
I wonder what could be next for Adam Ottavino. I love the little idea that he came up with. You running things for the Colorado Rockies pitching. Could you imagine? That'd be a lot of fun. Anyway, we'll talk about the future for Adam Ottavino when we come back on the MLB Network Podcast. Don't go anywhere. We're wrapping things up with World Series champ Adam Ottavino here in Studio K on the MLB Network Podcast. I've got a question for you. It's time for the We Got Now question presented by New Balance. This is a tough one. What reliever has the best stuff in all of baseball right now?
I'm going to go with Yohan Duran from the Twins.
Ooh.
He's got the velo to match up with the other guys that were circling through my head, but he's also got elite curveball and splinter pitch. So he's got 3 unbelievable weapons, which is an embarrassment of riches for him.
He threw a 99-mile-an-hour pitch over the weekend that had break that looked like a slider, but there was no way it could be a slider. Clearly, it was a cutter, right?
Yeah, probably.
A 99-mile-an-hour cutter with that kind of break.
Not fair.
Something you used to do back in the day.
No.
So, all right, I know you don't want to talk about the retirement thing yet, but as you look at your future, where do you see Adam Ottavino? Part of the game? Part of baseball? Is that how you see yourself?
100%, yeah. I mean, one of the things I've always lamented as a relief pitcher is just your lack of overall impact. And, it's like a sickness, like this baseball brain of mine. Like, it just doesn't turn off. I need to be involved. And I don't know whether that's front office managing. Those things are all definitely part of my ambition for sure. But I also like doing media stuff. So whatever it is, I'm sure baseball will be a big part of it.
Do you like the state of pitching right now in Major League Baseball?
Yes and no. Certainly, it's incredible what we've been able to do, what they're able to turn guys into, and how we're able to make guys better year in, year out now. I do think, obviously, the injury situation flies in the face of that a little bit. So from my perspective as a fan, I like the starting pitcher working deep into the games, grinding through it a little bit. But that's tough. It's a tough sell when you got 8 guys down in the bullpen that project, their expected on base versus this batter project, a lot better than the guy 3rd time through the order. So I understand it, but just from an entertainment perspective, I think we have lost a little bit of that starting pitcher heyday that I grew up with. And aesthetically, I'd rather that be back. But at the same time, I also appreciate just how much we've figured out and how far we've come in such a short amount of time.
Well, if playing baseball is a 10 out of 10 for you, where does media rank? It's like 7.5, 6.8. You're good at it, man.
It's pretty up there. I mean, I enjoy it. Anything talking about the game, but yeah, nothing can be playing, of course.
Yeah. Hey, it was fun hanging out with you, Adam. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is
very
awesome.
Insightful. Adam Ottavino with us on the MLB Network Podcast. We'll see you next time from Studio K.